Hello, my name is Ernest Lamoth. I'm a reporter for the Southland Journal.
And I am Mark Klaisner. I'm the executive director of the West 40 ISC in Western Cook County, but I am also serving as the president of the Illinois Association of Regional Superintendents of Schools.
Okay. Well, Mark, thank you very much for joining us today.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, there was a very detailed 70-page report that just came out, and we want to get some of your thoughts. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the key findings that you saw in the report?
Absolutely. So, Ernest, we started our conversations about this topic as far back as 2015. And already at that point, we saw on the horizon the teacher shortage crisis, coming at us. By the time we got to 2017, we decided to do formal studies. So 17, 18, and 19, we looked at the trends, and the trend was in a negative direction, that we were having less teachers coming out of college, more teachers leaving the profession, and we were seeing more and more shortages. And then after 19, in 20 and in 21, we have seen our trend became a cliff. And a couple of the key things that we found, I would like to start by pointing out that our study is unique in the sense that we survey all of the superintendents of public school districts in the state of Illinois. There are 852 districts, and we had 660 respond. So almost 80% of the superintendents in the state. That's important to us because we believe we're able to say, this is not a few people. This really is a snapshot of the entire state of Illinois. Well, a couple of the key things that pointed out, of the respondents, 88% of those superintendents said that we have a serious shortage problem. And of the entire group, 77%, it said it's getting worse every year. The thing that was most alarming to me, Ernest, was 93% of those superintendents said that they expect this crisis to continue through 2023 and 2024. In other words, they're communicating to us that they don't see an end in sight. The last thing I would just say as a highlight is in this year's study, what we're seeing that's tremendously different is it's not about just a teacher shortage, but we're actually seeing bus driver shortages, lunchroom worker shortages, crossing guard shortages, parapro shortages. We're seeing administrators leaving the field. We're seeing superintendents are leaving the field. We even see it at the school board level, where elected school board members are saying, this is more than I signed up for. I'm a volunteer. And so in every aspect of the public school enterprise, we are seeing challenges and shortages. And our study validates what we see every day across the state.
And Mark, this is a very obvious question, but I kind of just want to get your thoughts. If someone to ask you, well, there's teacher shortages and some bus driver shortages, tell me how that all affects my child as they go to school every single day. What would you say?
Well, it's a great question. And as you can imagine, some have asked me. And what I find myself saying, Ernest, at this point in time, is that the educator shortage is now coming right to the doorstep. Every single day, regional offices of education across the state are hearing districts say, I don't have enough staff to start school. We heard those kinds of dilemmas in the negotiations between Chicago and CPS, but we're also hearing it in Marion and in Rockford and in Quincy. All over the state, we're hearing, I don't have enough bus drivers to get kids to school. I don't have enough teachers and staff members to open school safely. And our parents are responding, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, I need to come up with daycare or with transportation. And so the teacher shortage has really come right to the doorstep of our families across the state of Illinois. We can all look forward and talk about things like lost opportunities for learning. We can talk about how much kids are achieving or not achieving. All of those things we're going to find out in the near future as additional consequences. But we are at such a severe crisis now that we're finding adaptive pause and remote learning and closures on a daily basis in every corner of the state, simply because we don't have enough educators to run schools safely.
And as we enter the second full year of the pandemic, how do you think that has played a role previously, and how you think it will play a role in 2022 and 2023?
Well, I'm glad you asked this question. We frequently hear people using terms like learning loss, and I'm not a big fan of that because I don't necessarily think that kids are instantly forgetting. However, it's very, very clear that our students have fewer opportunities for learning than they had a couple of years ago. We know that kids are not progressing at the same rate. In the month of March, Illinois does their standardized testing across the state. So we'll have a little bit of data that will help us answer that question. But I'd like to take it a step further, if I may, Ernest, that as I've traveled all over the state, a common theme I'm hearing is that students have missed the adventure of school, of being in school. And I keep hearing things like, my second graders left when they were kindergarten students. So they've not had 2 years of what it means to be in school. I have people saying my eighth graders left when they were sixth graders and they forgot how to open the locks on their lockers. My high school people are saying my juniors and seniors were freshmen when they left. And so they find themselves as upperclassmen, and yet they haven't had those opportunities to mature, to collaborate, to work with others. On top of just the school content, there's the whole experience of school. And I think back to my own years, to think about missing 2 or 3 years of football games, basketball games, homecoming, prom, the yearbook, all of those things are part of the experience of growing up and maturing. And so we find our kids with this kind of missing, voided couple of years. It's not just learning content. There are so many other factors. And I do believe, in my own personal opinion, I believe that that's going to take several years. I do want to highlight that we've learned some things. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, the pandemic has shown a bright spotlight on a lot of inequities across our state, not just in schools and technology and access to the internet and all of those kinds of pieces, but also just things like transportation and food delivery and healthcare. There's so many things that we've learned through this struggle. There are many, many things we were going to have to work on fixing together as a group. But I do believe we need to allow ourselves at least a couple of years to get our feet back under us. I know you've heard, and many of your listeners or your readers have heard, like, how do we get back to normal? What's the new normal? We hear that language all the time. And I must believe that where we land, maybe next summer, maybe the start of next school year, is a better place, a place with more hope, more innovation, that we learn a lot from what we've been through together, but also forgive ourselves for the amount of time it's going to take to settle back in and get back in our routine.
And what would you suggest, or kind of advice you would give to school districts, obviously, starting in the fall, of what's the best way, do you think, that they can kind of rev back up and create that, as you mentioned, the new norm, or just create back to what we used to have a little bit so we can continue to keep going forward?
Yep. I love this question. In the regional offices, one of the things that we're very proud of is that we do a lot of professional development and a lot of professional learning. We do a lot of school improvement work. And so we are starting conversations with our districts now about how we can work side by side. What can we do in the summer? And you were asking about August. I think August starts in April. We need to start planning. Can we provide workshops in the summer? Can we help set school improvement goals? Can we help empower teachers, equip teachers? I know, we all know that kids are going to come back slightly different. And we're seeing more and more discussions about trauma. We're talking about, to what extent kids have been through difficult situations. We know mental health is a huge issue. The statistics are just staggering about attempted suicide or suicides or domestic violence. Well, all of those factors are going to come back in the door in August. What do we do over the summer to provide workshops, symposiums, institute days to help our staffs get ready for kids as they come back? And then the next step for August, if I had a magic wand, I would say, don't get hung up on a bunch of test scores. However, let's assess where our kids are, start them where they are, and take them as far as we can possibly help them grow. I have to believe that your average third grade teacher knows what second graders look like coming in, but the raw material walking in the door this August will definitely be different. How can we help them assess those needs, remediate lost skills, or enhance, enrich skills where kids have learned new things, perhaps some of their technology skills? But we need to start this discussion now. We need to plan in April. We need to help our teachers and administrators be ready for August. And then, it may sound overly simplistic, but I think August is a time when we show up with open arms, welcome our kids back, and see what it takes to move forward and help them grow.
And was there anything encouraging you saw in the 70-page report?
Well, encouraging is a relative term. I do believe there are a couple pieces. If you triangulate some data with things from the State Board of Education, we're seeing a leveling out and maybe even a slight increase of the enrollment of young people going into education programs. We are looking at a variety of legislation this spring. We're looking for funding. So some of our recommendations in our policy recommendations include things like funding for minority teacher initiatives where we can provide scholarships and diversify our teaching ranks. We see that slowly, just slightly, our enrollment in teacher ed programs are going up. We see discussions with the State Board of Education about alternative and expedited routes toward licensure. All of those things have some hope in terms of both short-term and long-term solutions to the teacher shortage.
Well, the last question, Mark, is there anything else in general you'd like to add that maybe we didn't talk about?
Well, the one thing I'd like to just suggest is that I believe that schools have a history, schools all over the country, if not the world, they have a history of being a safe place. We practice drills. We're pretty good at keeping things clean and disinfected. And as we get back on our feet, I hope that we as communities embrace our schools. And I would even say public and private schools, that the kids are our future. So all of the bickering and things that we are seeing in the media, let's think about how to open the doors with open arms, get our kids in a safe place, and start looking to our future. And I think it's maybe an overused phrase, Ernst, but that phrase about it takes a village. I think we really need to talk about going into next year, all on the same page, all trying to be supportive, using our resources wisely, but realizing that the kids are our most valuable resource. So how do we do that together and support the variety of needs that are going to be walking in the door?
Well, Mark, once again, thank you very much for taking a little bit of your time today to talk about such an important issue.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I enjoyed our discussion. I'm glad to talk with you anytime that topics come up.
Okay, fantastic.